When we first started brainstorming as a team who we would want to talk about and really kick off this day with remarks about community college alumni engagement efforts, everyone overwhelmingly agreed that Dr. Pollard was the person for us. She's an amazing woman, she's a dynamic leader, and she's really doing a lot of great things and really walks the walk on her campus. And if you could see this campus, you would see the amazing things that she has accomplished both on campus and in the community. You'll soon learn that Dr. Pollard is passionate about alumni relations, institutional advancement, and the work of the community college mission. Dr. Pollard serves as the president of Montgomery College, which is located in Montgomery County, Maryland, and here she oversees 60,000 students, both credit and non-credit, all the academic programs and all the other great things that presidents get to do. So we really feel blessed that she's able to be with us today on such a busy day when we know she's out traveling and she's out meeting with students and leading the college. Dr. Pollard is incredibly passionate about community engagement, about student success. And if you were here for a while and talking with her staff, you'd really get a sense of all the partnerships and collaboration that's happening with business leaders, with nonprofit leaders in the area, with other educational institutions, and also with governmental agencies. They're really doing some amazing things. Now, Dr. Pollard, we also want to mention, which is always great when presidents kind of bow their heads, but she's also distinguished in many of the awards and honorees that she received. She was named Washingtonian's 100 Most Powerful Women. She's one of the 25 CEOs that you need to know, according to the Gazette of Politics and Business. She was the East Bay Woman of Distinction Award recipient, the Outstanding Young Alumna Award recipient from Iowa State University, the YWCA Woman of Achievement, and she was also named the most influential African American of Lake County. Now, Dr. Pollard, I'm sure there is wild applause going on from our virtual audience, and I can hear it in our own audience here on site, but just know that we're all here with you, we're rooting you on, and we're sitting on the seat of the edge of our seats waiting to hear what you have to say. So take it away.
Thank you, Melissa, for that very kind introduction. One of the things that college presidents should get to do very frequently is to say thank you. So I'd like to thank Melissa for that introduction. I'd like to thank Paul Heaton and Case for allowing and inviting us to serve as hosts and partners with them in this virtual first ever innovative way of providing professional development. But then also, I like to thank the people who make me look good every day that I get to work with. I really want to thank our advancement and community engagement staff, our MCTV for the work that they've done, our outstanding campus here at the Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus for hosting us, and to really say thank you each and every day for those people who allow me to actualize the mission that we do and share their stories so deeply. So thank you all very much. Benjamin Franklin once said that there are only two certainties in life, death and taxes. You can boil down the life of a community college to two certainties as well, alumni and students. Our campuses might change, how our students learn might change, and college majors might change as well. But you can be sure, no matter what, as long as a community college remains, there will be students and there will be alumni. And oftentimes, they are one and the same. We all know that today, community college students come and go from our campuses. They may leave due to personal issues, family constraints, work environments, only to return to college once things get settled down at home. They may get a degree, they may transfer early, only to return once they're in the workforce and realize that they could benefit from specialized programming and services that we offer at our institutions. They may transfer to four-year institutions only to return decades later to decide to pursue a passion that they've had their entire life, particularly many of those who do that in retirement. In other words, there is indeed a revolving door on most of our campuses, which means that our job as community college educators never really ends if we do it well. We provide a continuum of learning. We serve lifetime learners, and as such, we must shift the way we view our alumni and the way that we serve them. It is human instinct to embrace development strategies that work in the short term to increase dollars. In fact, many of my colleagues have unrealistic expectations about the people who do this work to think that can happen so quickly. But in actuality, we should want our alumni to have a relationship with the college that they attended and the community that we live in. It all boils down to continuous engagement. I want to touch on the 3 points of Montgomery College's alumni engagement strategy, and I'll call them the 3 Ps: partnership, participation, and pay it forward. Since today is all about alumni, I will center my speech on them. I'd like to share 3 stories of Montgomery College alumni who empower our students and with whom we hope to change the community that we live in. Strategy 1, partnership. At the age of 22, Marga Fripp was already an award-winning broadcast journalist in her home country of Romania. But she spoke her mind and ended up getting banned from journalism. So she started a nonprofit entitled Empowered Women International, or EWI, by the time she was 23. She helped pass Romania's first domestic violence law. But then her son was born, a son who suffered a brain stroke when he was 2 days old. So her family immigrated to our country to help with medical needs at that time. She knew how to run a business and had been successful in doing so, but she did not know how to speak English. So she enrolled in English classes at Montgomery College, and she met women after women who had experienced and believed that they needed to be empowered. So Marga continued to grow EWI here in Montgomery County in Maryland, raising millions of dollars in donated services and changing the lives of women by helping them start their own businesses. To support her efforts, the college began hosting the graduation program from the EWI program. And we just recently partnered to help EWI graduates continue their education here at Montgomery College. Through partnership, Marga is empowering women, and we are engaging her as an alumna of this institution. Strategy 2, participation. Debbie Dwyer was intimidated at the thought of going to a 4-year institution. Plus, all of her friends were coming to Montgomery College. She immediately fell in love with the college's diversity, saying that she, quote, fit in at Montgomery College. A college professor recommended transferring to American University, where she earned a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and then a Juris Doctorate degree. Dwyer has been a practicing attorney for 30 years, a career that includes stints as an FBI agent and a federal and state prosecutor. We haven't forgotten Debbie, and more importantly, she has not forgotten us. She says that, quote, she could never have enjoyed a fabulous career if it weren't for this college. And so she participates with our college. She serves on our alumni board's board of governors. She serves as a member in our mentoring program, a new initiative here at the institution. And she serves as a role model by participating in college cultural events. Dwyer lent her story to the college's recent art project, Portraits of Life, LGBT Stories of Being, which featured lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals who contribute to the success of Montgomery County. She serves as an advocate, speaking with lawmakers on behalf of this institution to share the power of what we do in this community in Maryland. And through her participation, Debbie is empowering students, and we are engaging her as a member of our alumni. Strategy 3, paying it forward. Martin Mayorga family fled Nicaragua when he was 10 years old. He graduated from high school and came to college when he wasn't quite sure what he wanted to do when he grew up. On a whim, 16 years ago, Martin mentioned to an uncle back home that they should partner to sell coffee here in the United States. That whim has turned into a coffee roasting pipeline with nearly 100 employees and a representation in major chains, including Costco and Whole Foods. We've kept in contact with Martin and celebrated his successes as if they were our own, because in a sense, it really is. But we are especially proud of the fact that Martin is not only a successful entrepreneur, he is genuinely a good person. He is well known for his philanthropy to sustain the environment while supporting local and international communities. But also, he is supporting our students at Montgomery College. Martin recently established the Mayorga Latino Leadership Scholarship to support need-based scholarships for Latino students who are business majors at Montgomery College. The gift will cover annual tuition for one student per year for at least 5 years. He says he knows firsthand from his personal experience the challenges associated with struggling to pay for quality education. Through Paying It Forward, Martin is empowering students, and we are engaging him as a member of our alumni. Inherent in all of these strategies is a fourth P. It is the people with whom we work. We make sure to remember that our alumni are just not anonymous check writers or just another constituency or fundraising target group. They are a part of our family. They're individuals who have a deep personal connection to our institution, and they have a deep personal belief that we have the ability to change lives in the community that we serve. As such, we try to make sure that our interactions with them are personal and relevant. Just as we are focused on individual students, we focus on individual alumnus or alumni. We must thank our alumni director, Greg Enlow, and his staff for doing a phenomenal job at adding a personal touch to our alumni affairs relations here at Montgomery College. And I really want to say something sideline on this. They work very hard to make sure that our alumni understand that we value them for the contributions they have made to this organization, but also understanding the fact that we're deeply invested in them as humans and as people who live in the community that we serve. Ultimately, these strategies ensure that there's reciprocity to each of these relationships. Both the college and our alumni are often left better because of being in each other's lives. They're engaged with the college through the 3 Ps: partnership, participation, and paying it forward. These are but 3 ways that our college is working to increase the engagement of our alumni. I am personally trying these strategies as well when I work with our alumni. After all, I do see myself as the chief alumni champion within the institution. I've started hosting regular president's roundtables so that we can bring members of our college community, business leaders, alumni, to figure out how we work to solve contemporary problems facing our institution and community, and how the synergy of our thoughts can help create solutions. Even though they may not all be alumni, this is essential also in helping business leaders and other organizations in the area understand the value of its community college and the expertise and the experiences that our students bring to this community, so that these business leaders can also become champions of our alumni in the community. And as I've mentioned, it's not so easy these days to separate students from alumni. I found that almost every place I travel in Montgomery County, and dare I say even parts of Maryland itself, I run into a Montgomery College alumnus. So I've started making sure to ask when I see people any connection that they may have to Montgomery College. Many of them are indeed current students. Some of them will describe themselves as future students. Many of them talk about the fact that they have attended this institution. Many of them describe themselves as philanthropists of this institution. I've come to realize that in some way, every single member of our community is either a former student of Montgomery College, a current student of Montgomery College, or a future student of Montgomery College. There is a continuum of learning, of lifelong learning, and if we are strategic about this, we can keep our students and our alumni engaged in every step of the way of this journey. Thank you so much, and I look forward to responding to questions you may have.
Excellent. Well, everyone, now is your opportunity to start asking some of those questions. The chat room lines are open. We do have a few that we pulled over from the chats that were going on yesterday that we thought would be really relevant to speak with an institutional leader to hear more about your perspective on it. So I'll start off with a few, but we're really hoping that you join in also, because here's your opportunity. We have a president with us, and who better to talk about some of just the institutional challenges you may be currently facing, and then maybe be able to bring that back to some of your leadership with some ideas and strategies on how to better promote your alumni program within your institution and community. So Dr. Pollard, thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have you. And I can imagine that everyone in their office, when you called yourself the Chief Alumni Officer, probably was jumping out of their seats and saying, pick me, because, you know, we want a president saying the same thing.
Sure.
So can you just talk a little bit about then what your feeling is of being the president and being that Chief Alumni Officer? What do you need then from your staff for you to be able to carry that flag proud for us?
Well, one of the things I think is very powerful is that oftentimes within our institutions, we have people who have responsibilities for various things. They are responsible for fundraising, they're responsible for government relations, marketing, they're the chief academic officer, they're in charge of this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if I do my job well, as the president, I'm responsible to ensure that I provide a vision and direction and then get out of the way and let them do the work. And if I do that well, I have to listen to them. And part of that happens, and I think about David Sears, who's our Senior Vice President for Advancement and Community Engagement. I'll tease him. I said, are you managing me right now? And he'll say, yes, but I obviously didn't do it well because you know I'm managing you. But that's a part of the job. And I think oftentimes folks who are engaged in this work don't realize that a part of what they have to do is to learn how to manage that president that they're working with. And oftentimes that may mean telling them things that they may not want to hear, but figuring out how to tell them that. It also means you have to name things. So our advancement staff is always very clear to say that I am the chief fundraiser of the institution. And that's a very distinctive competency for them to say, we're here to help support you. We're here sometimes to make the ask, sometimes to make the introduction, but your job is that. And they're very clear to remind me from the day I walked in until the day I leave here that that's what my role is.
That's great. So really then, I think is a lot of conversations that we've had through the chat rooms was kind of what is our role and how do we set realistic expectations? So what you're really saying is giving people the permission and also granting knowing the institutional culture that we all exist in, is that we have to provide strategies for our leadership to be engaged in our alumni relations program. So we need to think big, see what the institution's strategies and priorities are, but then funnel down how can we be adapting to that,
Very much so.
and then how do we need our leadership to help us?
And help set realistic expectations. I know that that's something that we often hear about. Our folks who do this work, alumni advancement, they often say that, you know, our president wants us to raise X hundreds of thousands of dollars without recognizing there's a whole infrastructure that has to go into that process. And part of what has to happen is to educate your president. And call me a little odd in this way. I recognize that the folks who work for me are the professionals in this field. I may set the direction, but I need to listen to them. And they may say, we're getting ready to start a campaign in the near future. And I walked in with an idea about the number. And they say, okay, good idea, DeRionne.
The next one.
Yeah,
the next one.
Let's talk about, let's meet this goal, which I think we can do. And then anything outside of that is just going to be gravy. And I said, you know what, let's figure that out. So part of that is figuring out how to help your president understand what's happening, giving them the competency, introducing them to professional development, have them walk with you in this journey and figure out when to bring them into it. That, to me, I find to be very successful.
Great, good. Well, then everyone has had that question answered for them. We do have a question from the chat room, so I'm going to put it over to Paul for a minute.
Yep, we have several, so keep them coming. Some really good questions
you're on
here.
with Paul now.
The first question is, do you believe that the students of today, the millennials, have a deep commitment to their institutions the same way that graduates of, say, 10 or 20 years ago might have to their institutions?
I think the question of institution is the challenge here. I think that many of our students have been acculturated through parents and other generations to identify far more closely with their four-year institution. And I think if we look at anything that's happening in that regard, you'll see that that's happening more there. So what we have to do is to figure out how do we carve a consciousness around their two-year experience as well. And a part of that is simply, one, from the minute they walk into the door, talking about their pride in their institution that they're currently in, making connections with them while they're here, and then when they transfer or graduate, keeping that connection with them, that you're in their consciousness. I think that this generation of millennials, or whatever we want to call them, are a deeply conscious generation. They believe deeply in philanthropy. They believe in being very much hands-on in that process. They believe in changing. They believe they can change the world. So what we have to do is help translate our mission to them in a way that they can buy into. So we have I have a Twitter account where I have lots of students who follow me, and when we're talking about advocating for our budget issues, they are the best people to advocate because they talk about, this is changing my life. They understand that, and how do we keep them connected, I think is really the point. Oftentimes we wait too late. We have to start that the minute they start at the campus.
And that's really great. So you're engaging your current students in the life of the institution, which is going to help them be engaged when they are former students. Similar to that, another great question is, how do you share that message of philanthropy with the young alumni who may not have the means or may not think that they have the means to give financially to the college?
I think any educational process requires several components. One is going to be an awareness campaign. I think oftentimes we skip awareness, we skip relationship building, we skip researching what their capacity or knowledge is, and we go right into say, hey, can you help us out? And a relationship takes time to cultivate. So you have to start that with those students early on and build that relationship and then help them understand, you know, if you make a commitment that you're giving $5 a month to Montgomery College, that's going to be $60 in a year. And as you start to grow and your career starts to grow, that money can grow. There's that opportunity. Or find something they speak powerfully around. Our college had a significant initiative around the DREAM Act. And I found that our students were the ones who were willing to talk about how can I contribute and help someone who does not have the resources to go to college because of their limitations, because of their naturalization status. That to me was powerful. So we have to find out things to speak to them. They're not going to care about new buildings per se. Maybe when they're older they will, but we have to find those issues and those things that speak to them and meet them where they are. They care about the environment. They care about helping people who are less fortunate than themselves. They care about education. They care about privacy issues. Let's find a way to meet them where they are instead of trying to bring them to where we are.
And when you spoke about the DREAM Act, what I was really impressed with the students that you used or the alumni that you used within your presentation was that some of them are immigrants. I mean, they've come from other countries, and so often I know a lot of four-years struggle with, you know, how do we raise money from students that go back to their home countries? And here, Montgomery College is doing it very successfully with these scholarships. You spoke about Martin's scholarship, and that's awesome to see that we can do it here. And we're actually capturing populations that not other institutions are able to sometime because of our mission.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things I've kind of come to this opinion, and I've gotten beyond this fact of people who are somewhat still fighting the community college mission. You know, I work at a community college, but I'm trying to make it a 4-year. I'm trying to make it a private institution. We are a public access, open access institution. We're doing God's work. And I love that. I love the fact that we are taking students where they are, helping them get to where they want to go. We're working with students who are coming to us who are highly gifted and those who also need help in developmental ed. We're looking at returning veterans and we're helping them. We're having deep conversations with those students who are wanting to become community activists. Quit fighting the mission. Embrace the mission and figure out how to help them do what they want to do so that they can also help us do what we need to do.
Yeah. And a lot of that comes back to even just defining what we want from our alumni and what we hope that exchange to be, you know, because you talked about advocacy from an admissions perspective, getting people in the door, from a philanthropic perspective. So it really is setting that expectation within
Very much so. I think
college.
Paul wants us.
Oh, all right, Paul, take it away.
Just some more wonderful questions, and we have plenty of time, so keep them coming. And I'm going to adapt one that's here. The question is, what does your alumni team do to make your alumni feel welcome and appreciated? But I would ask maybe that you put that into a couple parts, because there's things that you do as president to make them feel appreciated. There are things your alumni and advancement staff do, but also just the college community, your regular faculty and staff, if you could touch on those three elements.
Well, one of the first things we do is we try to celebrate them. And I think oftentimes the thing I like to do most in life is to say thank you. So if we could figure out ways that we could thank someone for the role that they've played in advancing the name of the college simply because of their association, that simply means more than going to them and saying, oh, and by the way, can you write a check to us? That doesn't make a lot of sense. We ask them to serve and to do things. We have an outstanding board of governors for our alumni association. Actually, the president and the vice president are here. They chose to come in because they are always advancing the institution, whether it be at a restaurant or in front of the delegation for Maryland. They do that because they believe deeply in what we do here. So I think that's a very important part about celebrating them. But our staff, and I think it's a culture that's set first by the leader of that unit, but then also throughout the staff that's there. They're always thinking about how can we engage our alumni. We have Bernice Grossman, who is the administrative aide to our alumni area. I think Bernice, I hope I won't get in trouble saying, celebrated her 90th birthday. 90th. But she does not slow down. And everybody in this county, she know, and she'll send me a note, Dr. Pollard, did you know that such and such got this award? You should know this. Or why don't you come and talk to my Lions group? I mean, it's amazing to hear that. And everybody, every alumni talk about the fact that she is personal, because she cares. She chooses to do that. And the staff, you know, it's amazing too. So you have to create that culture and that expectation that I have to set, that this is what I want to have happen. And then how do we sit down and engage them in every different way, whether it be advocacy, whether it be mentoring students, whether it be helping to find scholarship recipients. All of those things are part of the work they do. Oh, and by the way, let's sit down and have a conversation later about some of the other needs of the institution.
Great. You touched on the President's Roundtables during your remarks,
yeah.
and folks would like to know a little bit more about them. So if you could, explain kind of how they get set up, who gets invited, and what the benefit is for the college and for your relationships with alumni.
So if you probably couldn't tell, I'm a little high energy, and this is me, no caffeine. I said I wouldn't have caffeine before I walked up here because that's kind of scary. And usually once a week I'm in the car and I call David Sears or Carol, whoever, and I'll say, I got this great idea, Greg, I want to do this. And they have to manage me at that point and say, well, let's talk about how this fits into the bigger picture, DeRionne. But one of the things that we came up with is President's Roundtable. This is a group where we meet quarterly with a series of business leaders, some who are alumni, some who are not, community organizers, but it's a high-level conversation where I invite them to come and have dinner with me. We honor their time. It's typically 6 to 8:30. We have a cocktail half hour. We sit down and meet with them, and there's a subject that's being discussed. Oftentimes, it's me asking advice for them. I'll say, help me understand how you manage talent management within your organization. So we have someone at the table from Marriott. We have someone at the table from Westat. We have somebody from the table from various business leaders. And they come in and they engage with me in high-level conversations. We talk about infrastructure. And then while we're in the midst of that conversation, I'm also talking to them about the college and advancing that. So we've had about 4 of those sessions. And the last one, which was the best one, what did? We brought students in.
Oh, fabulous.
So the students are talking about what are the workforce competencies that we need to have to be successful, and to have students and business leaders talking. And those business leaders left out, those are some sharp students you got at Montgomery College. So guess what I just did? We just made a new set of advocates for this institution.
Definitely.
And it's a commitment. I have outstanding people that I work with, and we create the list. We have about 20 or 25 on the list. They're invited to attend. We go through a series of vetting what type of question we want a theme for that particular night. We connect with them. We tell them thank you at the end. I send them a letter to each of them. It's very much, again, stewardship. Stewardship is critical in that.
Similar to that, because we know you're very big on partnerships and developing even international partnerships. Are there any that come to mind that encompass the alumni aspect of what you're doing, where you've partnered with perhaps an alumnus who's at a business or something like that?
Yeah, actually, probably all 3 of the examples that I did in the speech. One of them, Martin Mayorga, who has Mayorga Coffee, not only in terms of helping us with scholarship, but he's done work in coming in and speaking with our business. We have a Macklin Honors Business Institute. He's come in and talked to those students about the work that he's done. He's an alumnus of this organization. I also talked about the founder of EWI, Women's Empowered International. She's done the same thing as well. And then we've also thought about how do we also advance the community. So we're working now with our corrections facility here in Montgomery County. We're having very thoughtful conversations about how we engage them and what business partners, such as a Marriott, might we be able to bring to the table to talk about looking at a skill or trade that we can help work with this population. Those are some that immediately come to mind. I'm sure, David, let me know if there's some more I should talk about. I'm looking at them in the audience. Because we can be a little
Come on
informal
up,
about this,
David.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another one I should talk about?
Family Justice Center.
Oh, yeah.
Partnering with them, and we have 2 alumni. One is the volunteer from the Family Justice Center that leads that organization, and then we have alumni that are staffed as social services workers working with our students that are clients.
So Family
David, we have a mic and a seat up here if you
Family
want to come
Justice
up.
Center, this is an alumnus of the organization that's working with families of domestic violence, and we are working with them, and she has it's kind of amazing to me that we have students who are working with them, they're working with us and trying to craft a different reality for those families, both in terms of scholarships, educational pathways. It's a very exciting partnership. Thank you, David.
And we spoke about we all said yesterday that we were the community's college, and we can all share that title because we all, live and work and have our own communities, but it's true in all the work you're demonstrating.
Well, and I think the other thing about that, my background is in English, and I started my career teaching composition. I'd like to think of community college, the community is a noun and a verb. You know, so it is not only just simply saying we are the community's college, we are in community. And that to me is very powerful. So you can't be this passive saying, wait till folks come to us.
Sure.
You know, that's such an old notion.
So yesterday.
Yeah, you know, we should be out in the community helping to transform the reality we want to see. Paul wants to say.
Yeah. Great question still, and one that I know a lot of you out there wish you had Dr. Pollard as your president because of how she's championing the alumni effort.
Your website stats are going to go,
So the question, which is a tough one, is what can alumni relations people do that are going to help engage their president or their board of trustees to get those leaders to embrace alumni relations to the extent that you have?
Well, I will be frank, when I've been the president of the institution 3.5 years, much of this infrastructure was here when I arrived, and I have to call out my predecessors who had a vision and worked to support that. So for me, I understood the context walking into that and worked with the staff here to make sure that I was able to be that champion and that advocate, but also to align many of the different things we were doing in the college with a vision, and I think that's where I've been able to do that. You know, one of the things I found, and I just had this conversation in another meeting, I was referring to someone, and I kept calling this person by the wrong last name, but everybody at the table just smiled at me. You know, I kept going. I kept saying Steve Mahoney, and his name is Maloney, and I kept saying Mahoney, Mahoney, Mahoney. So one person emailed me and said his last name is Maloney, not Mahoney. And I said, why doesn't anybody ever correct me when I'm saying his name incorrectly? And my point of that story is that sometimes our job, when I was a faculty member, as a staff, is to help place a context for the person that you're supporting. So part of that as an alumni staff, I would say that you have to sit down and have conversations with your president, actively engage them in the dialogue. Say, hey, can we have an hour with you to give you a status of where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there? Help them understand what best practices are. Give them a picture and introduce them. Bring them with you when you go to an alumni conference. Invite them to sit down as a part of this next session when Case does another session like this. There's value in that because a president, and we were talking about this earlier, you know, there is so much on your deck at any given point. I left the meeting talking about enrollment trends and projections. I'm here coming to talk about advancement in alumni relations. I'm going to go to another meeting and talk about emergency management. Oh, and by the way, we've got to figure out how the fund balance is working. So you've got to figure out how to help focus them in ways that are realistic, and then perhaps, and a lot of that is education. I really believe that.
So kind of going the other direction then, you're obviously engaged. How can a president and alumni people help engage faculty and staff of the institution, because they're really your eyes and ears in terms of being in touch with the alumni, and if they're not on board, you're
you have to really craft an infrastructure with able to share that, because they are actually the front line. Our communications and advancements, that they work so hard to learn student stories. I mean, that to me I think is critical. Excuse me. And the people who are on the front end who know that are our faculty and staff. They have been in their classes. They're writing the letters of recommendation. They're getting the announcement about graduation, weddings, and new businesses. So we have to figure out how we help them send those stories to us. So we are constantly outreaching. We have on our portal, tell us something about our students that we didn't know. Someone, you asked me in the previous question about the board. I do a weekly letter to my board, and I highlight, obviously, operational and other issues, but I always end that with a mission moment. And that mission moment could be about an alumni, it could be about a student, current student, it could be about a business leader. It's something, again, to understand and anchor it in the mission of what we do. So I think that those are probably some of the things that I would offer in that regard.
Right.
And I think there was so much chatter going on in the conversations coming through is kind of how do I approach this with my institution? And I think one of the takeaways is, we spoke yesterday that there's no magic wand. But what there is that by you sitting and being a paid position within your institution, your president's saying, this is important. By your president having, and your institution supporting you being part of this conference, the president saying and your institution saying alumni engagement is important. So now it comes to be our responsibility to say, okay, we are the alumni professionals, we are the experts, so what can we bring back to the institution and say, as the professional in this field, here's what we need to be doing. And I think sometimes because we're so new and we're starting programs versus walking into established ones, we get a little scared of that, but we have to kind of say, we are the authority here. The president doesn't know everything about alumni relations because it is so new at community colleges. So we really need to be taking in these moments and educating
I
them.
think related to that, we started a new office a year or so ago on compliance, and we have an outstanding director of that program, and she goes to a conference on compliance. I didn't know there was one. She goes to the conference on compliance and legal issues or something, and every time she comes back, I guess now she's in a position 2 years, she writes for me a summary of what she learned, the major takeaways from the conference. Now, what's powerful about that is twofold. One, she knows I'm not going to probably read it the minute it comes on my desk, but it goes into my to-read folder. She never makes it more than a page, right? And that way I can figure out what the main key, and say, if you'd like to follow up on this issue, let's do it at my next one-on-one, or let's have a conversation. So that way, she's taken some of the responsibility away from me and said, okay, as the professional, here's something I think you need to know. But the other part of that, which I think is powerful, she's given me something I can refer back to where I don't have to admit my ignorance in her face. I can say later, okay, help me understand a little bit more about this.
And she's also taking the effort initiative to say, hey, here we are, here's what we're doing, and you don't have to come seeking it. So take initiative. Paul.
So kind of related to that, and I think what we're finding is on your campuses, what do you do to get these people engaged is you have a conversation just like they're having here. And one of the questions that you might bring up is what's the goal? What's your goal relative to alumni relations? And so the question to you, Dr. Pollard, is what is your goal for the alumni relations here at Montgomery College, or the college's goal, and how much of that is related to money and raising money, and depending on that, how much do you wrestle with investing in alumni relations if there's not a big return in private giving from your alumni?
Yeah, see, I think that's immature thinking. Maybe I shouldn't have said that way. I think that if you are expecting the relationship to be with your alumni about money, I think that's too simple-minded. I think that as presidents, our job is evolving, and in the relationship we should have with our alumni and understanding what they do should be evolving. There's certainly a hope down the line that someone is going to say, you know what, I got my tax return this year and I'm going to help you out here, or I've made this planned gift, or I had this return and I'm going to do that. That's all well and great, and we have thousands of alumni who do that, and that's very important. But for me, I like to think that their role is really, as I talked about, partnership. It's about advancing the institution. It's about being in concert. This is yet another person who gets to be an advocate for this institution in circles that I may never be invited to. So if I'm in a room and I get to sit down and have a conversation, I have no problem with that. And we could talk about the college 24 hours and I still have more to say. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be in all those circles. So we need other people who can meet people where they are and talk about the organization. I also think, and this is maybe a little odd, my vision of what I think a college should do, I've challenged our advancement team. I want to make Montgomery County a college town. We had a person who worked for us who I adored, and he worked for maybe 6 or 7 months when I first arrived, and he took a job someplace else. And I asked him, I was devastated. I said, why are you leaving? You don't like me anymore. I felt like Sally Fields or whatever. You don't like me. And I asked him what was going on, and he said he wanted to raise his children in a college town, and he had a unique opportunity to go take a position there. And I was so struck by that. So I said to him, I wonder what that is. So probably the next day I'm driving into work, and I called Dave, and I said, Dave, I want to make Montgomery College Montgomery County of 1 million residents. I want to make it a college town. The first time I said it, Melissa, to one of my board members, he said, you can't do that. You've got AU here, you've got Georgetown, you've got Georgia. He started naming all the four. I said, none of them are Montgomery County. Montgomery County is mine. So we're going to make Montgomery County a college town. So we're actually starting this process that Dave says, I've scoured the literature. We can't find any place where they've actually made a county into a college town. I said, yet another first for Montgomery College.
That's right.
turning the college inside out. That's what we want to do. People come to us, but our alumni help us turn the college inside out.
So another really good question. As you know, churn is a huge dynamic in higher education today. I think I saw a stat, the average student attends 3 or 4 different institutions.
Oh, yeah.
And so given that and the fact that students may transfer away from Montgomery College or go away for a couple of semesters and back, how do you compete for their attention and engagement when you now have 3 or 4 other institutions, maybe even other community colleges, that are competing for that engagement?
So this goes back to the idea that at the institution, you should be doing everything you can to make sure the student has an outstanding experience at your institution. It reminds me when we go shopping. There are some places you go to because they have a product that you know you want, but more often than not, you go back because of the service, the way they made you feel while you were there, right? So that's what I'm thinking here. If I meet your needs when you come here, we provide you an exceptional education, which our outstanding faculty do. Our staff supports you in ways that you may not have even thought possible. Our foundation assists you with scholarships. If we create an experience so rich here that when you go to the next community college, a town or a state over, and you're saying, Montgomery College, this is how they did it, and I really wish I was back at Montgomery College. That's how you build that relationship with them, so that when they are churning away, I want them to have a longing for what they had here, and that they're always remembering that, and that we follow them and we celebrate them again. And at some point they may say, that Montgomery College, maybe I need to get in the alumni association because I'm proud of having been associated with that institution.
And it's communicating with them after they leave.
All the time.
Too often they go and it's our fault that we're not keeping them engaged.
So sorry, reading through the questions,
That's
trying
okay.
to find out the ones that have been answered or not. So.
Well, here's just, I know from some of the research that I had done when I was looking into community college alumni programs, quite a few presidents said that if they came into an institution that didn't have an alumni program, that it wouldn't be the first thing they started because of other institutional priorities, whether it's faculty contract negotiations, academics, funding, governmental pieces. Where do you think we're being too short-sighted if we're not seeing this engagement effort as something that really should be kind of with something within the first year or so, or do we need to be patient and let presidents get settled?
Yeah, I guess I'd love to know one president that has one priority. Now, my people would tell you I probably have too many in any given day, but I don't know how you have one priority. I think part of our job is balancing all the things that we have to get done, at the same time the things that we want to get done. So in my mind, there's a duality in consciousness that I think presidents have to have, and part of that is trying to manage the day-to-day of what's happening within the organization, but it's also this forward thinking about where you're trying to help the organization get to. And we have to be able to translate that in a way that gets buy-in. So for me, I think that perhaps if your institution is having accreditation issues, you're having significant fund balance issues, you're getting ready to have 3 unions go on strike. I mean, you're right. That might not be the first thing you get to. But I think as a comprehensive community college, you have to be thinking about these things and realize that the longer you delay in getting this process started, the longer it will take for you to see the benefits that come from having an actively engaged alumni.
So if you could please tell us about your reporting structure for your advancement staff and where alumni relations fit into that, kind of give people a snapshot of how you're set up.
That's an excellent question. So as Melissa said in the introduction, Montgomery College is a large institution. We serve 60,000 students, credit and non-credit, and we're located in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. and Maryland. We have 3 campuses, 2 educational centers, and as a result of that, we are a very complex institution. But in terms of organizational structure, let me start off with my bosses. There's the Board of Trustees, and then there's the college president. The college president, I have 10 direct reports. 4 of them are senior vice presidents, a senior vice president for academic affairs, student services, administrative and fiscal services, and advancement and community engagement. David Sears, who I've mentioned several times here, is the senior vice president for advancement and community engagement. In that portfolio, he has communications and marketing. He has our foundation, our Montgomery College Foundation. We actually have two foundations at Montgomery College. Montgomery College Foundation, which is our philanthropic arm of the institution, and then we have our Life Sciences Park Foundation, which is an entrepreneurial exercise, and they are an educational foundation. If you want to know more about that, we could talk about it at some other point. He also has Montgomery College Television that's in his portfolio. He has Alumni Association, which is in his portfolio. What else am I missing? Community engagement, which is in his portfolio, events. And special events.
And so the alumni person, so there's an alumni person or persons who reports to Dave.
So reporting to him is a director of alumni affairs, and that would be Greg Enlow, who is in that capacity. And Greg has 3 staff who report to him.
But he'd like 4, right?
Well, that's a good segue to the next question.
Greg always wants something, you know.
So, and because it does go right to the next question, what is the biggest challenge for Montgomery College in the advancement area and/or alumni relations?
I'd probably say 2 things. One is that we are very fortunate to be in the area that we're in, but we're also competing with lots of different people, particularly very large, prestigious, 4-year institutions that seem to hog a lot of the airwaves. So how do we compete in that environment? So I think that's probably, although I would offer, I think we're the 5th largest foundation in the country, community colleges, and we're doing very good work in that regard. The second thing that I would describe, if you talk to the staff, which I would encourage you to make the connections with them, they can tell you more. The other one for me is just this idea that we are in a county that is extremely wealthy. It's a county that has a high educational attainment level. It's a county where about 25% of the residents actually have children in the public school system. So trying to, at the same time, help them advocate and understand the need and the role that community college plays, while at the same time reminding them about how good we are. There's that duality that you have to have at that. But that would probably be it. They might offer, staffing is always an issue. I see David like, hey, you better say staffing. He'd always...
Not to this group. We have a lot of people with just one.
Yeah,
I keep trying
to tell him that. I keep trying to tell him. But, you know, obviously, with my high expectations, I'll own it. My high expectations, he said, that's great, but we also need to have some other different people doing it.
Yep.
So sort of to follow up on that, first I want to give a shout out to Colleen from your staff, who's been really terrific helping put this together. Colleen did her homework and posted for her 6-word story is engage alumni and students through networking. So great 6-word story. Thanks, Colleen. But I wonder if you could speak to, given you have experience at different institutions, different types, we have a lot of people participating who are at small schools or 1 or 2 person shops, alumni people, who don't have a president who gets it like you, servant leader, someone referred to in the chat room. And so what advice would you give to someone who's out there, they're passionate about alumni relations, they probably are doing 2 or 3 jobs at their institution, and their president's like, yeah, we like alumni relations, but they're not as supportive of you. What do you say to them to motivate them to keep doing the work when they have a lot of obstacles in front of them?
It's interesting. I came to Montgomery College from Las Positas College in California, which was a much different context than Montgomery County is, both in terms of operating budget size, a foundation that was probably 5 years old. And, so we were very new. I remember the first day we got $1 million gift. We were so excited. We were like, oh my God, I tried to do a cartwheel. And that was a very exciting, but it was a one-man shop. It was a one-man shop with a part-time assistant, and he reported directly to me. And what was very interesting about that is that we had a hunger that was very exciting, but we also wanted to build a solid program. So I would imagine if I were, I'm thinking of Ted, when Ted would come in and talk to me, he was very thoughtful about, one, helping me be educated about what the layout of the land was at that point in the Tri-Valley. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to set realistic expectations. And that, I say that a lot because it's something that oftentimes is for naught. And I think we have to really be very thoughtful about that. I also think that we have to help a president help them understand their role in this process. You are the chief fundraiser. You're the chief alumni champion. You are the chief advocacy person for the institution. So you have to help them figure out what's the best use of time in that regard, what you need from them in that regard. It's unrealistic to walk in, particularly if you're a one-person shop, to walk into the president's office and say, I need you at these 10 events over the next week and a half. That's probably not going to happen. Where's the best bang for your buck? The other thing that I think we do admit a disservice to is that we don't think about how we use other champions within the institution. You have one president, you probably have at least one or two vice presidents or folks who are at that level who report to the president. How do you use your faculty? How do you use your staff? How do you use your students? Man, you know, that's the closer right there. You bring a student in who's having a conversation about their experiences and can relate that to someone. That to me is one of the most powerful things that can happen. So start to triangulate your support base. Try to triangulate those advocates in a way that makes sense about the work that you do, because ultimately they become the course that your president needs to help them understand what you're doing.
Yeah. And if I may, you know, the one thing I'm thinking, because one of my mantras is it's better to seek forgiveness than ask permission sometimes. So if you really have, you know, sometimes, so I'm not saying to go rogue, but perhaps if you're really feeling, because this conversation keeps coming up and up again about what do we do with the president that, you know, maybe just start doing awesome things. And it doesn't have to be big awesome things, but, you know, demonstrate, you know, that I'm starting to pull together some alumni from a roundtable perspective to understand how we can be serving them in different ways, you know, and find some little wins for yourself, and then you can bring them to your president. Because part of it is if you don't have someone micromanaging you, you can be very entrepreneurial and you can really do some great things and take these pieces and make some great things happen. And, you know, then raise your hand to the president and say, here's some great things going on. Come along with me.
That is a great idea.
So seek forgiveness. Don't ask permission. All right. Well, Paul's giving us that we are about out of time. Do we have time for one more question, Paul, or do you think?
I think we probably need to wrap it up.
All right.
We know Dr. Pollard has places to be.
That's true. She does.
Sweet.
Well, I just want to say on behalf of everyone in our virtual world, all of us here and myself, thank you, Dr. Pollard, for being here.
Thank you. Great questions. Great audience. Thank you.
Thank
and good
you.
luck to you.
And she really is as fabulous as she seems.
Oh,
So.
you're sweet.